Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the August session of the Alma Q&A webinar series. My name is Ali Verbavetskaya, and I am the Web and Mobile Systems Librarian in the Office of Library Services. I am joined today by my colleagues Kevin Collins, Kathy Wang, Nancy Egan, Roland Sabisky, and Greg Goslin. And as usual, before we begin, I just want to take care of some housekeeping. Please mute yourself for the duration of this hour-long session until you have a question you'd like to ask. Please do not accept other calls while you are in this session, as that will cause your hold music to play and cause kind of a major disruption for everyone else. Similarly, please do not place us on hold just outright. You can always hang up on this session if your attention is needed elsewhere and call back in when you're free. Questions may be asked at any time using the chat function built into Zoom. I'll be keeping an eye on that conversation there and relaying questions as necessary. If you'd like, you may unmute yourself to ask questions when we come to the question portion of our session. And questions may be related to our prepared presentation or anything else as it relates to Alma, including the ongoing Aleph cleanup projects. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, let's get started. Today we will be reviewing Alma terminology and providing Aleph or other system equivalents wherever possible. We hope that introducing you to these concepts and terms will help acquaint you with the new system and show you how similar, or in some cases dissimilar, it is to what we already use today to manage our libraries, patrons, and resources. So let's get started. So just a brief agenda. We'll be going over the glossary, then there will be a portion for questions, which will be the majority of the session today, and just some slides with links to other resources. So today we'll be talking about terminology, and we're going to be grouping it into sort of 5 areas known as the functional areas of Alma. So what you see here is a screenshot of Alma with the 5 functional areas highlighted at the top: acquisitions, resources, fulfillment, administration, and analytics. And what you see once you're logged into Alma will be different based on your roles, but we'll sort of talk about that briefly when we get there. So what I want to do now is just define what these functional areas are and go from there. So acquisitions is the process by which an institution acquires new items or services, including physical and electronic, and including standing orders, periodical subscriptions, and renewals. And this term happens to be sort of the same everywhere you go. So acquisitions in Alma is what we know as acquisitions in Aleph. The resources area in the Alma screen refers to resource management, which includes cataloging, physical inventory maintenance and control, and e-resource activation tasks. Fulfillment is the process by which patrons borrow and return physical resources or access electronic or digital resources. And this is what we are used to calling sort of this one term for fulfillment in Alma refers to all of the following in Aleph: circulation, booking, requests and holds, course reserves, reading lists, interlibrary loan, and so forth. So this is the way by which patrons get their requests for information fulfilled. The administration area refers to user management and general administrative tasks, such as running a record update job. And this is sort of all of the back office operations in Aleph. Analytics is the Alma component used to manage data reports and the dashboard, which we just know as reports in Aleph. And then just a couple of general terms. Sandbox, which we'll be referring to occasionally, is the non-production environment that allows for staff testing and training. We call this staging, Aleph staging. And workflows is something we'll be hearing a lot when we move to Alma and as we prepare for it. Workflows is the series of system managed steps used by staff to accomplish the work of managing library resources in different functional areas of the library. And we don't actually have any equivalent to this in Aleph. This is unique to Alma from the way we've been working with things. Okay, and so now moving on to the functional area acquisitions. Kevin, if you want to take over.
Acquisitions or acquisitions library, it just refers to that unit, that ordering unit that you use in Alma. In Aleph, we call them order units, but in Alma, it's just simply libraries. And they talk about funds rather than budgets. It's pretty straightforward. Purchase order line, PO line, POL, those are very commonly used terms because every item, all the materials are associated with a POL, purchase order line. So that's something you're definitely going to see a lot of when you first join the Alma listserv. You're going to see people talking about that PO line, purchase order line. There's also continuous order, which includes both serials and standing orders. There's one-time order, which is really for monographs, or order type M. Receiving, that's what we refer to as for arriving in Aleph. It's just a different term for the very same thing that we're used to.
Hi, this is Kathy. So I'm going to cover resource management. Like Ali mentioned earlier, resource management is an Alma function and dealing with bibliographic authority and holdings and item data. Within the Alma system, we can also access external bibliographic resources like OCLC that most people use in Aleph and bring in records into the Alma system. So this is different from the way we do in Aleph. So I'm going over the terms now. So there's a metadata management system, or we call it MMS. It's commonly an acronym that was being referred to by many people. So it is the interfaces functions that library staff can use to view, add, and edit relevant bibliographic and holdings item data. So the metadata management system is an updated term with a broader scope, which is commonly used in the web community. It goes beyond the traditional management of cataloging data, which has been used more in the library community. So the MMS is equivalent to the Aleph's cataloging module. So the next term is metadata editor. So it's very straightforward. It's the tool used for editing and creating bibliographic and holdings data in Alma. So unlike Aleph system, when we open the cataloging module, open a record, we can begin to edit the data. But in Alma, you will have to open a metadata editor. So that's a specific function that you have to enable, make it happen. And MMS ID, so it's metadata management system ID. So it's primarily system ID for a given record. So it's equivalent to Aleph system ID or BIP ID. And inventory is the resources that are owned or licensed by or associated with an institution. In Alma, the terms used for inventory include the physical, electronic, and the digital items. So in the case of physical, it includes print and other non-print physical items such as tangible DVDs, microforms, etc. For electronic items, mostly it refers to electronic resources, for example, ebooks or e-journals. For digital items, it refers to more of a special collections or archival materials that are digitized from their physical counterpart or they were born digital. So, well, let's take a look at some screenshots so you will have a better idea. We move on to the next. So on the Alma dashboard, you will see under resources, and then you will see a drop-down menu, and then you have to open metadata editor for you to view, add, or edit records. Can we move on to next? Yeah. So on the left side upper corner, you see MD editor. So meaning you are in already the mode of metadata editor. You will be able to access the full bibliographic records and also item record, holdings record for us to make changes or add. Can we move on to the next one? Okay, this is the screen that I mentioned about inventory. Inventory in Alma, you will see either physical, electronic, or digital there. So when you see the green dot there, physical, you know this item is available in this a library with the physical item. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, Nancy?
Yep. Hi, everybody. This is resource management, electronic. So electronic resource management, or an ERM. It's the systematic approach to tracking the selection, acquisition, licensing, access, maintenance, usage, evaluation, retention, and deselection of a library's electronic resources. In Alma, this entire workflow is handled in the system across the acquisitions, resources, fulfillment, and analytics modules. And of course, there is no equivalent term in Alice because we didn't have an ERM. License is a contract between the library and a vendor for the lease of one or more copyrighted electronic collections, portfolios, or in some cases, services, and these are all defined a little later. In Alma, we may also refer to a New York State contract as a license. And then these are the zones that I believe we talked about in the last session as well. The institution zone contains the local inventory, ordering and licensing information, patron data, and a handful of bibs that cannot be shared. In Alice, that was considered your local catalog as identified by your own code. The network zone, it contains the vast majority of bib records for CUNY libraries, allowing staff at any institution to see what titles are held or on order by other institutions. In Alice, we referred to that as the Union Catalog. The community zone contains global authorities, a shared repository of standard authority files, a community catalog, shared records managed by Ex Libris and the Alma community, consisting of mainly e-resources, and a central knowledge base, shared administrative information for e-resources, including linking and coverage information, as well as bibliographic enhanced concert records. And in Alice, we used knowledge base such as SFX or Serial Solutions.
And Roland?
Hello, this is Roland. Good morning, everyone. The first Alma term on this slide, also dealing with resource management and access, is level. And its definition is each component of the electronic resources model in Alma. A level can be an electronic collection, a portfolio, or a service. And these three terms we'll deal with in a minute. The only thing that it's reminiscent of in our current environment is the level in SFX. For those who have been on the SFX committee, it's the same thing as the target level and the services level and the portfolio level. To come back to the three new terms, package or electronic collection is a package of electronic publication. This can be an aggregator package that contains all the titles in a package. For example, say EBSCOhost's Academic Search Complete would be an example. Or it can be a selective package that contains some titles within a package. So you could have a selective package for Cambridge journals that only contains 20 titles or so. or it can be a database, which is an abstract or an index service. The similar term in our environment would be a target in SFX or a database in serial solutions. The portfolio in Alma is a serials or monograph title in a particular collection from a particular provider that is available in a particular date range. This can be a title in an electronic collection or a standalone individual title. And in SFX, actually the exact same term is used, whereas in serial solutions, you will be familiar with that term title. Lastly, on this slide, there's the term service, which is the linking or full text information. The service can be full text, selected full text, or no full text, which is the case in, for example, an abstract or an index database. Again, in SFX, it's the same term where we have services for full text as well as abstracts or even get a table of contents services. Next slide, please. This slide is basically a graphic representation of the levels. So as an electronic collection, you could have a license for the ProQuest Biological Science Journal. The service that you would use is full text. Then you would have, within that collection, you would have a portfolio list of 1,472 e-journals, and the portfolio title, which would be the biomedical journal. Now we can look at this from within the Alma inventory model, and I think this graphic shows how you can license a title that is part of different packages. So in this case, you would have the analysis of social issues and public policy, which are part of two different packages. One is the package service full text from EBSCO's Academic Search Premier. The service is full text. And the portfolio, for the portfolio, you would have a coverage of from 2001 to 2015. Now, you could also license it from the Wiley Online Library Full Collection 2018, where the service is the Wiley Full Text Service, and you would have the portfolio that's available from 2001 to the present.
Thanks, Roland. Kevin?
I'm done, right?
Yeah.
So fulfillment is actually a broad term. This one is going to be different for us. It defines a broad range of activities that we use to put resources, put things into the hands of the patron. So whether it's circulation or reserves, whether it's ILL, whether it's actually putting an ebook onto the patron screen, it's all the different ways that we provide materials to patrons. In terms of use, in ALIF we call it a circulation loan policy. It's a list of the predefined fulfillment policies that defines the institution or library's commitment to the patron, under which it's basically what a terms of use is that you would understand from any other context. Users, in ALIF we call them patrons or staff accounts. In Alma, users, everybody's a user. You have different roles as a user. Sometimes your role is patron, simply using the materials. Other times it's more hands-on with staff. There are internal users. Think of local patrons that we have now. These are basically people that we would manually enter into Alma. It could be high school students. It could be a staff person on the campus who's not in CUNY First. You have external users, people that are managed outside of Alma. For us at CUNY, it's basically the CUNY First records, the people that are loaded automatically into Alma by batch loads. There are roles and profiles that define what people do. The user role defines what parts of Alma someone can use by permission, such as, say, electronic inventory operator or a circulation desk operator. And a user profile is a collection or set of these individual roles. So you might have a cataloger or role, or a circulation desk manager role. A cataloger role might involve being able to do things at the circulation desk to check materials in and out, as well as all the other things that a person in that profile would normally do.
Okay, thanks everyone. So this was our prepared portion of the presentation. If there are any questions, you may ask them now. There was a question in the chat. I'm gonna just slide back to a screenshot. It was asked and answered, but I just wanna make sure we all are aware. In the MD editor, Alicia asks, we could see the inventory and 3 categories for an item: physical, electronic, and digital. What is the difference between an electronic and digital item? Greg responded and said that digital resources are files that are owned by the institution, such as images, videos, sound recordings, and PDFs. Digital resources differ from electronic resources, which are resources to which the library subscribes. And Alicia followed up asking, does digital equal owned, as in we own the copyright, or we have purchased a copy? Greg, do you want to?
Hi, this is Greg. Hey, Alicia. So think about anything. If you have digital collections, and those collections are local artifacts, so to speak, then or owned by you, or if you are licensed to also display digital objects, I would, again, Alma has a digital asset management module that we are not licensing, but let's just say that you have links to digital resources in MARC records. If those links are pointing to local digital collections, or again, something that you're licensed to show, then that's acceptable. But it's really about the terms of use. If you have external digital collections, that again, you are licensed to present. If not, we're talking essentially about either born digital content or digitized content that you own the copyright to.
Okay. Thanks, Greg. While we're on the screen, I also just wanted to show the fact that when we did this search and brought up these results, we see the 3 tabs. So we can, the institution, network, and community. And in this case, this was just searching the institution, which would be the local institution. In this case, we can say, for example, this is Queens. And so there's 1 physical copy. If we did the search and switch to the network tab, this would be the union view, and we could see who else has this copy. And then the community, if we did a search for this term in the community zone, we would see all available electronic resources to us from Ex Libris and the general Alma community.
May I also add something to what you said? Okay, from each individual record, you see number 1, number 2, and number 3, and you see the icon, that's network, and then you see, and you see the icon with more people, that's community, meaning this, the second record exists in the community zone. And the first record, actually, it's from the network zone, and then it has a physical item in one institution within that network. That's my understanding.
Thanks.
Right, and the other part about it is you have to pay attention to which zone you're searching in, because if you're trying to, let's say, add something, you may search for it in your network zone, you don't find it, then you look for it in the community zone. But chances are, if it's in your institution zone, it may or may not be. It may be in the network zone. If it's not there, then you can look in the community zone. And when you're switching between tabs, you just we'll have to get used to remembering Where are we searching? Which zone are we talking about? It's something we'll come used to later on when we start actual training and start actually using it.
Are there any questions about anything we covered today? Anything related to the Alma implementation at all? So I got a question. How is label printing integrated into Alma? And also, sorry about my cat meowing earlier. Okay,
Well, actually,
so
that cat is actually a metaphor. It's something separate and external. Printing is something separate and external. It's separate from Alma. And it's something that we're going to be talking about. One of the working groups is already looking at it, and it's something we'll be presenting to people later on. But it's called, the one solution is called Spinomatic. It's fairly commonly used. It works with Windows 10. There are other solutions out there, but that seems to be the most likely solution that we're going to be using. And again, that's something that we want to, what's the word, trust but verify. We're going to want to make sure it's working before we create a list. The systems working group has already realized and agreed that one of the deliverables that they're going to provide is a list of all the different, a way to print all of the different ways that we would print, whether it's printing receipts, printing transfer slips, printing labels. There was something that I had circulated to the technical services list showing screenshots of Spinomatic. So if you have a copy of that email, you might find that interesting to look at those screenshots.
Just, sorry, I want to broadly state about Alma and printing. Alma is a web-based service, and so printing does not work as it normally would because you can't, due to security issues, you can't just connect to a printer from a website and things like that. So all printing is handled by email that is sent to the printer. But again, we have a systems working group that is working on this issue. Others before us migrating to Alma have gone through this before, so we will draw on the experiences of the Alma community at large, and we'll figure out how all of this works and the best printing equipment that we can use for this. Kathy?
Yeah, I just want to add, that means Alma does not have a built-in label printing function. So we will have to rely on an external program that has been used very well with other Alma institutions. So that's the direction we are going.
Yeah. Okay. And then a question from Jim. Let's go back to that screenshot. So electronic or digital would also have numbers after them to indicate other libraries owning them. And in the case of, I think, the other tabs, definitely the network, it may. If it was the institution, it would definitely show if you have an electronic copy and how many, I guess. Kathy, Kevin?
I will need to work with the system more. I don't have the answer here. Yeah, sorry.
I can only assume. Yeah, we haven't, this is, right. We just got some sandboxes provisioned. We just logged in to make sure that that the logins work. We haven't started the process yet of testing. So we can answer that when we have more information. Another question, is there an equivalent to alifcom.ini or print.ini in customizing Alma, or is it just a setting screen?
There's no equivalent. Alifcom.ini, that's something that you install on your PC to run Alma. In Alma, it's browser-based, so you open up a browser and there's the equivalent of the desktop application.
So it will be just kind of a setting somewhere that can be set up in Alma.
Now, if you want to get really complicated, you can do something with extensions and browsers, but that's not something that every library is going to be able to do. because some institutions, the desktop is more locked down. But there may be something that an individual library can do, depending on their system librarian and how much they investigate and experiment with different things. So there, I mean, if the question is, can we tinker with the way it's installed and runs? Well, there are ways to do that. Do you have to do that? What if you don't have a system librarian? Well, then you don't need to worry about it. It's not something you have to do or that you necessarily need to do. You know, part of the advantage of this being browser-based is we get away from this, you know, complicated computer techie stuff that people no longer need to do. Simple as that.
Okay, thanks. Okay, are there any other questions? In the meantime, while we're thinking of questions, I want to go through some of the resource slides just to show you what's available. Today's presentation with the glossary was just a very tidy percentage of what is actually available in the Ex Libris Alma glossary. And if you wanted to take a look and study up, you can. It's in the Ex Libris Knowledge Center, and the link is provided here. Other institutions who have migrated to Alma also have made their own versions of the glossary. So Harvard has one, the University of Georgia libraries have a glossary of terms, as well as the California State University libraries. There is a video that we recommend for the especially e-resource management if you wanted to take a look. And it's one we cited, well, we used information from here to populate some of the terms and definitions. If you haven't yet, we recommend taking a look at some of the Alma Essentials videos on the Ex Libris Knowledge Center. Specifically, the orientation one would be helpful to get started with now. Especially, I guess, while it's still summer and maybe a little bit quieter, you have some time to take a look. The videos aren't long. They're 5 to like 10 minutes each. So you can take a look. And then there's all kinds of training more available from Ex Libris. And just to remind you, we do have a training working group set up that will be working on creating training and finding specific opportunities for training for the CUNY libraries as the implementation ramps up. We are still technically in the onboarding phase. We have not gotten to the implementation phase yet of our Alma transition, so all we can do is kind of refer to the existing videos and watch the overview things to get acquainted with the terms and the interfaces.
You know, the other part, at this point, nobody should feel compelled that they are getting left behind if they're not in looking at documentation or looking at the training materials. There's no need to rush ahead with that. The training working group is going to be meeting in September. Shortly thereafter, they're going to start issuing some recommendations about how to get started with some of the training, but the formal training doesn't begin until November. So we have lots of time before we even need to get involved with that. Part of the whole model that we're using is let's focus on the data cleanup now so that later on, when we're working on the training, we don't have to think about the data cleanup. So we're still back in the cleanup phase before we even get started with training. But certainly, if you want to start looking at these videos and you find them interesting, please knock yourself out.
Right.
You know, the other thing I would say about that is try not to overwhelm yourself by trying to learn everything, because that's not a realistic expectation. That that any of the other libraries that have migrated have found that it's much easier to divide things front of the house versus back of the house, or to subdivide it even further. And we'll have specific guidance about that later on, once the training working group has had some time to actually meet and formulate very clear step-by-step process that we're going to be recommending for people.
And our structure for the implementation, all of the working groups and committees, they're all outlined in our implementation LibGuide. It includes all the group rosters. There's a calendar of events so you can see when the groups are meeting. Minutes will be posted there from these meetings. It's a good resource if you haven't checked it out yet to take a look and see what this implementation is all about. And I've made reference to the Ex Libris Knowledge Center previously, but you can also just explore. It is all of the documentation available from the vendor. There's no login required. Anyone can access it and start taking a look. Again, or not. This is just if you feel more comfortable being a little more prepared, you're welcome to take a look.
That might actually be a good, useful first step for the training, is to look at what Ali was just talking about, to familiarize yourself with what exactly is on the LibGuide, just so you know what the different pages are without having to necessarily worry about delving into the detail of what's in each page, but just to understand what the resource is that you have available to you, so that when the time comes and you need it, you'll already know, oh wait, if I look over here, I can find out this information.
Okay. We still have 20 minutes left in the session, so plenty of time to ask any questions if you have them. Again, about anything, about what we covered today, about the Alma implementation at CUNY, about Alma in general, the Aleph optimization projects, anything that's been on your mind about Alma. If you have any questions that come up after this, you're also welcome to, let's go back to email us at the service desk. And again, check out that implementation guide. That may help you answer some questions as well. If there are no questions, we can end early. It's been a quiet August Monday morning. Okay. All right. We will cut it here then. Thank you so much, everyone.